this is slide that basically is a copy of the utility undergrounding map, and you also have a copy of that. On this particular slide, I just wanted to draw your attention to a few things. This indicates both where we need undergrounding and where some of the undergrounding projects are. The blue shaded areas are areas where we have had projects that were completed over the last 15 years, which was about not 80% of the money that we've spent so far. The orange shaded areas are 6 projects that have already been formed. The status of our program, as I mentioned, 16 projects have been completed over the past 15 years, and they're basically itemized on your handout. The projects that are in process, these are 3 of the projects that we have formed that have not been completed up till now. There's the Bayfront, which is in construction at this point. There's a 4th Avenue undergrounding project, which is from L Street to Orange Avenue, and that project is in construction. It's approximately it's approximately 50% complete. And L Street from Montserrat to Nacion Avenue. Actually, SDG&E has just informed me that the design has very recently been completed, and they're looking at going to construction when they have the resources, approximately within the first half of 2008, this year. One thing that I want to mention here is that the way that we prioritize utility undergrounding projects has to be in accordance with the Public Utilities Commission Rule 20A, and we just wanted to throw in a project here that we think would be a really excellent undergrounding project under those rules. Okay, this is a real Chula Vista project. And as a matter of fact, this is L Street. This is the district that is actually in western Chula Vista that has been formed. A few other things in terms of selecting undergrounding districts. The streets were selected based on an established ranking system. And this is actually one of the projects that was involved in our 1991 program. So we're basically finishing up that program at this point. There is a public hearing for property owners and a resolution that establishes the district. There is a choice, by the way, now in whether or not we include service laterals in the district, or whether property owners construct the laterals themselves and get reimbursed, but we think including the laterals in the district really speeds up the construction process. SDG&E and as a lead, and the other utilities design new undergrounding facilities, and SDG&E constructs them. But the other thing that you need to consider is that every project usually or always has a city project that's associated with it. For 4th Avenue, we actually received some funding to do the sidewalks. So in addition to doing the sidewalks, we always have to do some lighting improvements, because frequently the current lights are on utility poles, and we also have to do some changes in the signalization. So those are always costs that the city picks up in conjunction with undergrounding projects, which are all funded through the PUC 20A funds.
Elizabeth?
Let's see, there was just one more thing that I was going to add is in the process, there's also one additional step that you may recall we recently took with respect to 4th Avenue, and that one was, there's a resolution generally before we actually go ahead with construction that establishes the dates of conversion, or the estimated dates of the utility conversions, and also the pole removal date. And after that resolution passed, then we post signs on the poles so that the local residents will know about what to expect. This is the current undergrounding funding. it's basically through the Public Utilities Commission Rule 20A. And the Rule 28 funds are, or the Rule 28 projects are basically reimbursed through revenue from utility bills. But actually, the city of Chula Vista has an agreement with SDG&E that basically has a steady state source of allocation. And the allocation is $2 million per year. This is actually quite a bit better than the city would be getting without the MOU, because SDG&E has a formula that they generally use that pertains to the number of utility connections in the city, and also the areas that are currently not undergrounded. And the city, the last time we used that particular formula, the city was only getting an allocation of $850,000, which was in 1995. So we actually did get a really good deal when we negotiated this contract, and I believe Michael Meacham was one of the main people involved in that. What happens with respect to the costs is when the district is completed and all the costs are finalized, then basically the cost of undergrounding is charged against Rule 20A, and those are just SDG&E's costs. The other utilities basically don't have their costs included in this amount. The city is allowed to borrow forward, and generally the rule is just borrowing forward for 5 years, but the city has a clause in the MOU that allows it to borrow forward for as much as we need to fund the Bayfront District undergrounding. Based on our current estimates, we're basically estimating that we'll basically use up the funds for the next 10 years. So that basically, I mean, because of that, we aren't at this point looking at forming any additional districts. I think we'll get a better feel in terms of exactly how much money we have after the Bayfront project is complete. This is just a little bit of a description about some other potential undergrounding funding sources. One of them is called a Rule 20B district, and that is a district that basically is formed by property owners or with the consent of property owners. They actually pay for the costs, frequently in combination with an assessment district. And we've actually had one particular neighborhood that's expressed interest in this type of district. I believe it's on Hilltop Drive. One good thing about this district is that when this district is formed, basically the people in the district are also credited with salvage costs, so the costs are actually a bit lower for this district. And there's also Rule 20C, which is a kind of district that's financed generally in agreement with a developer, usually just one person or one entity. There's also a possibility of forming districts with a business improvement district, basically under one of the previous rules. And I guess the last thing I might want to mention is something that the city of San Diego is doing, and I think they're fairly well known for. They actually have a utility surcharge on the residents' utility bills that appears as a separate line item. And because of that, they are able to fund undergrounding in a number of areas that really aren't in the Rule 28 priorities, such as many residential areas.